Hello there, maniacs of Movieland. Welcome to the podcast. This is More Movies Weekly number 25.
For $25,000.
My name's Greg Fisher. This legend sitting next to me is David Roberts, and we're here to talk to you about all things cinema-related, films, movies, all that kind of stuff. You know the score. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome to the podcast. If you're a returning viewer, hey, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming back. This week, we got a lot to talk about on the show, so Dave, how are you doing?
I'm very well. How are you, sir?
I'm fine also. Let's get on with it. This week we have been watching a brand new film called Kate. This was on Netflix. It's a bit of an actioner. It stars Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Woody Harrelson. It was directed by someone called Cedric Nicolas-Troyan. Okay, so this is a film that the storyline has kind of been done a lot. Let's just put it like that for a start. Basically, the main character is a female assassin. We find out she has been raised to be a female assassin by Woody Harrelson's character. So straight away, you're thinking of things like Nikita or Hannah or any number of these kind of female assassin sort of films. In its look and its visual style, I was very much reminded of Gunpowder Milkshake, which we also covered recently. We've done a review of it. We reacted to the trailer, etc. That was the Karen Gillan film from a couple of months ago. This is similar territory. It's slightly differently stylized and handled in terms of the material. But it's that kind of film, is it not, Dave?
It is. It definitely is. I mean, it's in terms of the style, yeah, Gunpowder Milkshake, you think of with the neon, like John Wick, that kind of thing. Of course, going further back, Blade Runner, that kind of thing. Is it as intense as those films? No, but it's definitely going in that direction. And yeah, it is that typical female assassin storyline. We're very well acquitted with it, as you were saying. There's been a whole slew of these recently. You mentioned Gunpowder Milkshake, but there was Jolt this year, Ava last year, Vanquish this year,
Atomic Blonde
from a couple of years ago,
Red Sparrow, Lucy.
There's been a whole slew of these films that keep on coming up, and it's virtually the same
story
and story.
Much. What made this one very similar to Gunpowder Milkshake was the fact that she's got this young girl in her charge as well. It's different. Yes. It's obviously different from Gunpowder Milkshake. There's a different sort of conceit to it all, but it's, just looking at the basics of it, it is kind of the same. Let me ask you, what did you think of the film?
I wasn't blown away by it. I don't think it was special. I don't think there was anything particularly exciting. I didn't think it was terrible. There's a lot worse films than this. I don't think it's a bad film. But this is the kind of film that would be thrown on the telly or something. I'd watch it. It'd be in the background and I'd be satisfied enough, but it certainly didn't take my breath away,
Take my breath away. I think that's fair enough sort of appraisal, to be honest. I personally enjoyed it more than I enjoyed Gunpowder Milkshake. That to me got a little bit too cheesy, a little bit too over the top in a lot of ways in the story and some of the special effects. I didn't get invested in it whatsoever, even though it was fun. This, I did get invested a little bit more. I thought that the character development was pretty good. It was still a little bit over the top. I mean, spoiler alert, she gets poisoned by polonium-204, I think they call it, and therefore spends the rest of the film trying to exact revenge on those that have poisoned her before it kills her, because there's no surviving that kind of thing, isn't there? There's no antidote for radioactive poisonings. I thought Mary Elizabeth Winstead was really good in it. I did enjoy her performance. I thought the action was excellent. It was really well shot and choreographed. The score I really enjoyed because it was kind of reminded me, you mentioned Blade Runner before, it had a kind of Vangelis edge to it. And I was thinking Vangelis mixed with a bit of Hans Zimmer. sort of Dark Knight kind of soundscape. Very modern, no strings or anything like that. It's all done kind of electronically. That suited the whole thing quite well. Woody Harrelson, he's always good, isn't he?
He is very good. He's one of my favourites, really. But the only thing I felt was he wasn't in it enough. I don't think they utilised him as much as he could have. When you've got someone that good, he felt like he was very underused. And I get that he's a background. He is the guy in the background looming, and it becomes more later on, in the final act. He takes up his stride, but even then, I felt like he was very much just there. And that was a bit of a shame.
So he's playing the character who's a handler, as they always say, people who are familiar with stuff like Killing Eve, where you've got Villanelle and her handler. Well, he's the handler. And yeah, as you say, his character develops towards the end. You see a bit more of him then. He's always good. He's always entertaining. He's always believable. He can do comedy well. He can do serious drama well. He's a popular figure. I always like to see Woody. I've not seen Mary Elizabeth Winstead in much before, but when I've looked at her filmography, I have actually seen her in films. I just not remembered her. Like, for example, she's in Death Proof and stuff like that, but she didn't really stand out to me in any of those films when I looked into her filmography. But in this, I won't forget her again after her performance in this. I thought she carried the film very well. She played the part well. But I think I agree with you. It's nothing super special to write home about. No. But people who love action movies, who love this kind of film, this female assassin thing, it's based in Japan. So, you're in Tokyo for most of the film. That's kind of a cool side of it. So you've also got influences like films like the Yakuza or the original Punisher film with Dolph Lundgren. He sort of fights the Yakuza in that. So there's this sort of Japanese side of it. You mentioned Kill Bill to me as well. I think that's a sort of fair comparison. So anybody who enjoys those sort of films, I think is a safe bet to say you would enjoy this. It's not going to be the best film you've ever seen in your life, but it's worth the price of admission, I think. I thought, I quite enjoyed it for the most part, more so than I thought I was going to after Gunpowder Milkshake, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it wasn't my cup of tea. It's interesting that it's obviously the Japanese and the Tokyo influences and stuff in here, because really the first film I can think of that is the kind of female protagonist killer was Yuki Kashima's Lady Snowbird from the 70s. It's kind of the first template for this kind of film. So it kind of goes back to the roots of it being Japanese as well. It's a Japanese film. But I think we've had so many of these, especially more recently, we've had so many of these. They're a bit like watered down. And, you think of great films like Nikita and you think of things like Kill Bill and stuff and you think, oh, these are great pieces to watch and keep on going back to. And I think more recently we've seen these ones and it's just a bit like, it's not up to the level. It's like those Die Hard clones from the 80s and stuff. It's kind of like you're trying to do something, but it's not there. It's not enough, and they're acceptable enough to put on, as I say, like a TV movie, like we'll put something on and everyone will be fine with it. But it's not it won't go down in the pamphlet.
It's not a game changer. It is using that blueprint of all of those films we've mentioned, and it does its own thing with it. I'd say it's above average for all of those sort of films. When I mentioned before, like Red Sparrow, Old Guard, Atomic Blonde, and all that, to be honest, they were a bit meh as far as I was concerned. Whereas I thought this was better than that. I thought it was definitely worthy of a watch. Fans of action will love it. That's all we got to say, really, isn't it? There's not a lot more to say about it, to be honest.
That's it.
What do you think? Have you seen Kate? Let us know in the comments. Let us know your thoughts. If not, I'd advise you give it a watch if you like action. If it's not sort of your thing, you won't be watching it anyway. So there we go.
So in movie news this week, we start with Marcia Lucas. So for those who don't know, the original Star Wars was edited by Paul Hirsch, Richard Chew, and George's then wife, Marcia Lucas. But she's come out this week. It's actually a quote from a book that's just come out that interviewed Marcia. But she's basically said that the new Disney-era Star Wars films are crap. The actual quote, she said that J.J. Abrams doesn't have a clue, criticised the Disney-era films, saying, absolutely, positively, there was no rhyme or reason to it. When I saw that movie where they kill Han Solo, I was furious. So she's not a fan, Greg.
She is a fan of Han Solo.
A massive fan of Han Solo.
How dare you kill Han Solo? You don't kill him, you freeze him in carbonite, put him in the freezer for a few months and defrost him when you need him.
I love you.
Fuck off.
I always put that down to Harrison Ford because he just hated playing Han Solo so much that he was probably in his contract. He said, I'll come and do another Star Wars as long as you kill the character and I never have to return. Even though they brought his ghost back in, what one was it, Rise of Skywalker?
I thought he should have died in the last one. George didn't think there was any future in dead Han toys.
I don't necessarily agree with the Han Solo thing because I think it was probably right.
I thought The Force Awakens was the best of the
it was,
three.
Absolutely.
And that moment was up there with some of the other moments from the rest of the saga. So I'm with you on that. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I'm sure she has her reasons for saying it.
Absolutely. But I think for the other parts, I think she's absolutely right. I mean, Marcia's quite important in the history of it. She basically saved the original Star Wars.
Exactly. That's the thing, isn't it? She was the reason they say that it was saved from being canned because she put such a good edit together in its early stages that, you know, the executives were sated by her cut and said, okay, I can see what you're going for. And a lot of people say, you know, most people don't know it, but she saved Star Wars. She knew how to cut a film together.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the original edit, you know, he showed it to filmmakers and executives. Brian De Palma has famously said, it's an absolute mess. What's this? It makes no sense. Marcia recut it after that and got rid of a bloated first act, which was a bit like American Graffiti in Space.
That's it. American Graffiti in Space.
Space is the famous quote. The trench run sequence at the end, she made it so that the threat was the Death Star was going to blow up the planet. So there was actually, you know, some peril and excitement to the sequence. So it really made the film that we now know as iconic. So I think she's very well versed and respected enough to make these criticisms.
Yeah, sure.
I think that her criticisms and her comments are what we've all said about the new ones, that, you know, she's talking here about rhyme or reason. She's right. We've spoke about how there's no cohesion between the three films. None of them connect together properly. The characterization is flimsy. And I think that's what we've all criticized them for, that, you know, the three films are not a trilogy.
No.
At least they don't feel like one. There's no overarching plan. It's just...
over-the-top toy commercial.
Yeah. All three are so different that it doesn't make any sense.
You'd think with people like, you know, the people that they had working on it, you'd think they would have been able to, you know, with all the money and resources and historical context, would have been able to make the greatest sequels ever, and they still get it wrong. And that's what gets me. I think, how did you mess this up?
How do you fuck that up?
Having said that, Rogue One was brilliant. I enjoyed Solo as well. That was fine by me.
Yeah.
No problems with Solo. But yeah, the Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. Eesh. I'm on Marcia's side.
I may have gone too far in a few places.
There are people that enjoy them. Whatever. Maybe they're younger people who don't have that kind of historical experience with the previous films. Okay. But, you know they're bad when people are saying, well, the prequels are better than this.
I love Jar Jar.
Okay, another one I wanted to talk to you about was this whole idea that people have been complaining when they found out the length of No Time to Die. Apparently, its runtime is pretty much around the 3-hour mark, which is a lengthy film.
Yes.
But it makes me think of this whole concept that seems to be a new thing, really, where I don't know if it's just young people or whether it's people my age or older as well, but them complaining that some movies are too long, like a 3-hour movie. But the gripe I have is a lot of these same people will happily go and binge 7 hours worth of Netflix TV series in one night and not think twice about that. Now, I appreciate it's a different format because you're getting it episodically, and it might be half hours or hours or whatever. And this is like, oh no, the millennials and the Gen Z have to concentrate for longer than 5 minutes at a time for 3 hours on a film. I don't know whether it's got to do with people needing a wee in the cinema or what, but what's the problem here, Dave? Can you explain it to me? Because, 3 hours they tell me No Time to Die is 3 hours long. I'm thinking, yes, 3 hours of Bond.
That's it. That was my reaction. 2 hours, 43 minutes is scheduled in for.
That's not even 3. It's
exactly
2 and 3/4.
The longest Bond ever, they're saying. But to me, it's like, well, yeah, if it's the ending to this era, this Daniel Craig era, which has been so good, you want that monumental film to me. Yeah. So I thought it was interesting. Obviously, plenty of people coming on. There's just people defending it as well, but there's loads of people moaning online, as there always is. The press were having a slow news day, so this got picked up and, of course, went in the press. But as we were talking about this before, and I'd said that there's also this weird thing, people are saying long films, but I'd seen loads of films recently that are like 80 minutes, 90 minutes, a lot shorter on streaming platforms. But I thought, let's have a look then, what is the truth? And perception is very interesting on the topic, I think, because although big films more recently have come out, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was 3 hours, Avengers Endgame was 3 hours, Justice League was 4 hours, The Irishman 3.5 hours, but they're just like 4 big films that you could pick out and they stand out. But actually, when you take all the rest of it in, they're just 4 films. I found on this website Towards Data Science, and they did an analysis of films over the years. And actually, films are no longer or shorter than ever before. They've consistently stayed at about 100 minutes is the average length of a film. That's consistent since the 50s. And there's never been a change in that length of film, really, over time. It's all consistent. So you see on the graphs here as we pull them up. So it's never really changed. There's always been like 3-hour films. You go back to musicals and epics from the 60s.
Yeah, David Lean films, Dr. Zhivago is a long film. I think that's getting on for 3 hours, if not more. The Star Wars films themselves have got considerably longer as we've gone over time. No one complained there. So, yeah, I just don't get it. To me, like I said, people complain, is it a long film? And you think, you're going to fucking sit there and watch 9 hours of Netflix series anyway.
Exactly.
Or, what's the problem with watching a film that's 3 hours long?
I also think like value for money. If I was going to the pictures, I'd want value for my ticket. It's a strange argument. I don't quite understand, because it's like, well, especially if like, a lot of people watching at home nowadays, the old quote from Alfred Hitchcock, wasn't it, was length of a film should be the size of...
should correlate to the capacity of the human bladder or something like that.
Yeah.
In other words, it shouldn't be any longer than when you need a piss, There's nothing worse than that, is there, when you're watching a movie and you get about halfway through and you've had a big thing of Coke, or you've had a couple of bottles of water or something, and you're starting to think, it's terrible. You shouldn't do it because it's bad for you. But I end up sitting on it because I don't like to. I don't mind if you're at home, you pause it and you can just stop and start whenever you want, but it's not going to stop it for you in the cinema. And I don't like to miss anything, but I have been in that position before where,
you hold it on,
you get caught short, and you either go and miss that few minutes because you're desperate, or you hold on to it and you end up leaving the cinema like crippled, like, because, your bladder's about to burst.
With more people watching things on streaming now and at home and stuff, it's like, well, they can just pause a film anyway. So it just seems a bit people arguing over nothing, really.
No, I suppose not.
It's a clever argument. I'm not sure it'll produce the end you desire.
Well, I'm glad it's 2 hours, 43 minutes. I wouldn't want it to be any shorter because it's, like you say, it's the last Daniel Craig Bond film. It's going to be a big blockbuster bonanza. You want your money's worth. What do you say watching this? Are you a fan of long films? Would you prefer them to be short? Let us know in the comments. Let us know why. Either way, it would be interesting to hear your thoughts on this particular topic.
And finally, in film news, have you heard about the new deal for Christopher Nolan for his next project?
No, tell me about it.
So, of course, there was the big falling out with Warner Brothers at the end of last year to do with Tenet and HBO Max and the conflict over streaming and theatrical releases, which was well talked about at the time. So obviously they fell out, so Nolan's gone looking for a new studio. It seems that Universal have signed up for Nolan's next film, which is, of course, this film about Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
So the deal that's reportedly been offered to him is £100 million budget, which is it's an okay budget. There's been bigger budgets, but I guess it's not. It doesn't sound like it's going to be a big action film, so they probably don't need as much money. But total creative control, 20% of the first dollar gross, and that's not on net, that's on gross, which is quite something. A 6-week no-release contract, meaning they can't release a film 6 weeks before or after the film comes out of the pictures. Universal, that is. And more importantly, 100-day theatrical window, which we've covered recently about the shortening of the theatrical window after the pandemic and stuff to like 30 days or whatever it's been.
Yeah.
So to offer out a 100-day theatrical window is quite a...
Well, it's 3 months, isn't it? You know, it's just over 3 months. It's like back in the old days.
It is.
It's like back in the old days, you have a theatrical release. Then there'd be a little bit of time before it came to exclusively to the rental market, where you'd be able to rent it on video tape or then became DVD. And then there'd be a little bit more time again until you were able to purchase it on VHS or DVD. And then about a year or so later before it could be played on TV.
On TV, yeah.
So
it's quite something, I think. I mean, and especially, you know, we're talking about studios have now been fighting about the theatrical windows because they were all trying to get streaming services off the ground. Paramount and all that are all in this game now. And it's interesting as well, as a side note, that apparently Apple were interested in offering a deal for him. But you can imagine the request for a 100-day theatrical window is not going down well
and
there.
They're so fond of putting stuff, for on demand as at the same time as
on day one
releases, that he's not going to go for that. Very interesting, and it is interesting to see a deal like that get struck in this day and age. So, good one. That is something to be kept an eye on. So that just leaves us enough time to tell you about what we've been up to this week on our website. As usual, there is the history post, which is This Week in Film History, which always covers the week that we are in at the moment in terms of film history, what's happened in terms of births, deaths, events, releases, things like that. They're always worth checking out, so you can check them out on the website, moremovies.co.uk. I think you can click the articles tab and it'll drop down to film history posts and you can find them all there.
Absolutely. Also this week, we've got another one of our top 5 directors articles. This week is the top 5 Orson Welles films, the, of course, legendary director. You can see our picks. The link is in the description down below.
We also have a new review up on the website and here on the YouTube channel that's done by Dave, which was for Escape Room Tournament of Champions. Is that a sequel to the first Escape Room film?
It is, yeah, a sequel to the first one. It's just come out.
Okay, to find out about Dave's thoughts about that film, you can have a look at it right here. We've got a link in the description below. Also worth mentioning, if you are too busy to watch us on YouTube, you can always go over to our audio vendors, which are all the usual ones, iTunes, Spotify, the rest of it. We're on there too. If you follow the link to the podcast via our website, you will find a link to Anchor, which has got all the streaming options for you to listen to us on audio only. Worth mentioning that option is there for you also.
And Greg, do you fancy a coffee?
Oh, go on then, if you're buying.
I'll stick with the coffee now, thanks.
Well, remember, to have a coffee, we need people to buy us a coffee. And if you like what we're doing and would like to support us, you can donate over at buymeacoffee.com. The link is in the description down below. Or if you'd like to subscribe to one of our packages, you can do that over on patreon.com. The link, again, is in the description down below. And on Patreon, you can do things like vote on the films we cover and see exclusive content.
And don't forget to join us on social media at More Movies For You on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of those, where we do silly things like the movie of the day.
I learned everything I know at the School of Rock. Thank you, Jack Black.
So there we go. That wraps up another week, my friend. That's 25 episodes in the can, wrapped up into a bow, sent out there on the internet for you to enjoy. Thanks very much for joining us. I hope you can join us again next week where we'll be talking about more movies. As Dave said, if you want to have a say in what we're talking about or reviewing, then jump over to Patreon and sign up for one of the packages and have a vote on what we're talking about. We'd love to see you over there too. Until next week, take good care of yourselves and don't forget to keep watching more movies.
That's it for this video. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And remember to like, share and subscribe right here on YouTube. For more film reviews and articles, check out our website moremovies.co.uk. And join us on social media at More Movies For You. That's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all across the board. You know the score. If you enjoy what we do, please consider supporting us at buymeacoffee.com or join us on one of our packages on Patreon. The links are in the description down below. And for more filmtastic content, click one of the buttons on screen now.